Welcome back to this deep dive. Today we're exploring something pretty fundamental, I think. Silence. You shared some thoughts about its power and, well, why it can sometimes feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's definitely something, isn't it? How the absence of noise can actually feel really loud in its own way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Loud or maybe edgy, like you expect peace, but instead there's this almost restlessness.
That restlessness or this, immediate impulse to fill it up again. Turn on the TV, grab your phone, just think louder even.
Right. And I wonder, have you ever really stopped to think why? What are we trying to keep out with all that noise, the external stuff, and maybe even more, the internal chatter?
Well, from a Gestalt perspective, one way to look at it is that maybe we're trying to avoid what's simmering underneath. We talk about unfinished business, those old feelings, maybe relationship stuff, things we started and dropped, regrets, stuff that hasn't really been digested.
Unfinished business.
Yeah.
Like emotional leftovers.
Kind of, yeah. And when the usual distractions fade, when things get quiet, that unfinished business, it tends to get a bit louder, harder to ignore.
So the silence doesn't create the discomfort, it just reveals what's already there.
Precisely. It's like holding up a mirror. When the noise is gone, you suddenly see what's been reflected all along, those unresolved bits, the emotions that are asking for attention.
Okay, that makes sense. It actually reminds me of this situation with someone, let's call him Alex. He was totally stuck on a big life choice, asking everyone, reading everything, just drowning in advice. And the more he got, honestly, the more lost he felt.
Oh, yeah. Been there.
Right. Then, totally by chance, his phone died, Wi-Fi went out, something like that. He was just stuck in silence for a while, unexpectedly.
Okay.
And he said, in that quiet, it wasn't like some booming voice gave him the answer. It was more like the confusion just settled. And a feeling, a sense of knowing what he actually wanted kind of surfaced. It came from inside, not outside.
That's such a perfect illustration. It really is. The silence clears away the interference, doesn't it? It lets you actually hear your own signal, that sort of internal compass.
But it's not always easy to just sit there. It takes something, maybe courage, to not immediately reach for the phone or the remote when that quiet hits.
It absolutely takes courage because you're choosing to stay present with whatever comes up, even if it's uncomfortable. And yeah, that question is key. What might you be trying to outrun by avoiding the quiet?
What are you running from? That's a big question.
It is. And it's different for everyone, of course, but often, yeah, it links back to feelings we find difficult. Maybe sadness, loneliness, anger, fear. The silence just strips away the buffers we usually put up.
It asks you to just be with it.
Exactly. Just be with what is. And that vulnerability can feel, yeah, pretty intense sometimes.
Okay, so we've talked about why silence can feel edgy, this sort of unease. Let's pivot a bit. What happens when we habitually avoid it? You mentioned something about a cycle.
Yes, the cycle of experience in Gestalt. Think of it as a natural flow, like breathing. You encounter something, a thought, a feeling, an event, you engage with it fully, experience it, and then you kind of withdraw, absorb it, integrate it, and you're ready for the next thing.
Okay, like a wave. Contact, engage, withdraw.
Sort of, yeah. And discomfort with silence or habitually avoiding it often means you're interrupting that cycle.
How so? Where's the interruption happening?
Usually right when things start to feel uncomfortable. So instead of fully engaging with that difficult feeling or thought, allowing yourself to really feel it.
You grab the phone.
Exactly.
Right.
Or you start planning your grocery list, or you suddenly need to tidy something. You break contact. You interrupt the experience before it's complete. Like that example you mentioned, Sarah grabbing her phone first thing, maybe avoiding a flicker of morning anxiety or just the blankness.
Ah, I see. So you skip the fully experiensive part.
Right. And that feeling, that thought, it doesn't just disappear because you looked away. It's still there, unprocessed.
Just waiting.
Just waiting. It becomes that unfinished business we talked about. And because it's unresolved, it's probably going to pop up again, especially
in the quiet moment.
Bingo. When your usual defenses are down. And this can become a real pattern, a default way of dealing with anything that feels remotely difficult internally. And often this goes way back maybe to early life when certain feelings weren't okay to express.
So you learn to cut them off early. That connects. You also mentioned bringing awareness to the body. How does our physical self play into this avoidance?
Oh, hugely. The mind and body aren't separate entities, right? Emotions live in the body. Think about anxiety. It's not just a worried thought. It's maybe a tight chest, shallow breathing, clenched jaw.
Yeah, definitely feel it physically.
So when you consistently push away certain emotions, your body often holds on to that pattern. It holds the tension, the unprocessed feeling. Paying attention to those physical sensations that knot in your stomach when things get quiet, the tension in your shoulders can be incredibly informative.
Like the body's sending up a flare. Hey, something here needs attention.
Precisely. It's like even the idea of silence might make your shoulders creep up towards your ears. That physical response is a clue pointing towards the emotional territory you've been trying to detour around. The body remembers.
Fascinating. Okay, and then there was projection. How does my feeling about my own inner quiet relate to how I see the world outside?
Right, projection. So in this context, it might look like this. If you're deeply uncomfortable with your own inner silence, with the thoughts and feelings that arise in that space, you might find yourself constantly complaining about how noisy everything else is. Oh, the city is unbearable. People talk too much. There's just no peace and quiet anywhere.
So I'm basically taking my internal discomfort and sticking it onto the outside world.
Kind of, yeah. It can feel safer, maybe, to locate the source of the unease out there rather than in here. Blaming the external noise deflects from having to face the internal quiet and what it brings up. It's another layer of defense, really.
Wow, okay. Avoidance, the body holding tension, projecting it outwards.
Yeah.
It all weaves together. And you mentioned the paradox of control, too. How does trying to force inner peace backfire?
Oh, massively. It's one of those tricky things. The harder you try to wrestle your mind into silence, the more you try to make yourself feel
The
calm.
more agitated you get.
Often, yeah. It's like trying to hold on to water by squeezing your fist tighter. It just slips out faster.
Right.
Real, inner, quiet, genuine peace often doesn't come from forceful effort. It comes more from, well, acceptance.
Acceptance. So letting the discomfort be there instead of fighting it, that feels counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But think about that river metaphor. If you build a dam to stop it completely, the pressure builds, maybe it floods somewhere else unexpectedly. But if you allow the river to flow, even if it's turbulent sometimes, it finds its natural course. Your inner world is a bit like that. Trying to rigidly control thoughts and feelings often just creates more internal struggle. The paradoxical theory of change suggests that change happens when you accept what is, not when you try to force yourself to be something you're not in that moment.
So allowing the turbulence of the silence
Yeah.
rather than damming it up with noise or effort.
Exactly, allowing it to be there. Which leads to the next question, right? What actually happens when you do start to turn towards the silence, even knowing it might be uncomfortable?
Yeah, what's on the other side of that avoidance?
Well, it can feel like uncharted territory, for sure. Like we've said, the stuff you've been avoiding might come right up to the surface. Difficult emotions, maybe questions you haven't wanted to ask yourself about your life, your relationships, your path.
It sounds potentially confronting.
It can be. Confronting, unsettling, maybe. To face aspects of yourself without the usual filters and distractions.
But is that where the good stuff is? The insight?
Absolutely. That's exactly where the opportunity for real self-discovery lies. When you can manage to just be present with your own experience, the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, without immediately judging it or trying to fix it.
Just letting it be.
Just letting it be. Insights often bubble up on their own then. Silence isn't demanding answers right now. It's more like an invitation to just be deeply present with yourself.
Presence, not performance.
Beautifully put. And realizing that you are capable of holding your experience. Even the hard parts. You don't always need to do something about it immediately. Sometimes just being with yourself quietly is the most profound thing. That allows for a different kind of understanding to emerge, one that doesn't always come from logic or analysis.
So if we were to sort of wrap this up, what's a different way someone listening might start to think about silence, starting today?
Maybe, instead of seeing silence as empty or scary or something to conquer, maybe see it as fertile ground, like rich soil where things can actually grow.
Fertile ground, I like that.
Yeah. It's a space for reconnecting, for processing, for hearing that quieter inner wisdom. Embracing silence isn't necessarily about becoming a hermit, right? It's about finding a better rhythm, a balance between engaging with the world and taking time for that inner reflection.
A balance. So maybe the invitation for anyone listening is just to notice. What might silence reveal if you leaned into it just a little? Not as a chore, but maybe with some kindness towards yourself, some curiosity about what's actually in there.
Exactly. Kindness and curiosity, it's an ongoing journey, isn't it? Just getting to know yourself layer by layer. And silence can be a really helpful companion on that journey.